you doing, guys? Today I am going to marry the top portion of the original steering shaft from my 1955 Wheel Horse Senior to the new steering shaft to the new worm gear. Yeah, that's a lot. In the prior video, I went ahead and machined my worm gear, which is a brand new John Deere worm gear to fit into the raw steering box. I machined it so that way I could center it as well as prepare it to be welded. Now the next aspect of the steering shaft is I need to marry this top portion of the steering shaft from the Senior to the new shaft itself. And ultimately the reason why I'm redoing all of this is two. One, the original worm gear in the steering box was completely, utterly destroyed and could not be used, number one. Number two, somebody had hacked the original steering shaft for whatever reason, and it was just a total disaster. Thus the reason to remake a new one. So in this video, we want to go ahead and machine the top portion here so I can slip this onto the new shaft and weld it also, just as I am going to do with this worm gear. Now, the total measurement from the top of the steering box cap to the bottom of the steering wheel, and that's what this tape line means, not this, okay, needs to be 23¼ inches. So let me go ahead and just line this up. And as you can see, with the best of my abilities with one hand, that is 23¼ So I need to shorten. I want to reuse this entire top portion, to be honest with you. So we're looking at what, 16 and, right? That's what, just about 16½. It's just shy of 16½. So that means I want to make a stopping point in the steering shaft right here. The center of the original steering shaft, is ½ inch. So I'm going to go ahead and have maybe about an inch go up inside this. So I'm going to go take it to my buddy's machine shop. We're going to machine this down to ½ inch so it slides in nice and easy. And then we'll cut the shaft and then we'll bevel it and then we'll just tack. I'm hoping to tack weld this part of the steering shaft to the bar and tack weld the worm gear to the bar. So that way I can bring it all back, put it on the tractor, make sure that's where the steering wheel needs to be. All right. And then from there, we'll go ahead and start talking about the steering shaft tube. That's a lot, I know. So let's get this thing marked up and loaded in the car, and let's go get some machining done.
I just think, you know what it is? He ain't coming back. He likes it down there. And hopefully we'll see him this year, because Sean's going to want his brother to see the new kid.
Steering shaft right here. I had the center when I was spinning this in the lathe. I had the centering point, whatever the hell you call it, in this little divot, and it was spinning smooth and straight. But when I took that off, there is a little bit of run out on the worm gear. Obviously, when we welded it, maybe it tweaked it a little bit or something. I took it out. Whatever. At the end of the day, I don't believe it's going to be an issue. But then again, I just tacked both pieces, the worm gear to the shaft and then the top to the shaft, in the event that I need to pop it apart, fix it, lengthen it, shorten it, whatever. So that's the reason why I just tacked it together. I had my friend Bob tack it together. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the worm gear and the steering shaft all into the steering box itself with the bearings, take it outside, bolt it to the frame, and then we'll see where the steering wheel exactly falls. All right, guys, well, I think this is the end of the video because we have, or at least in my mind, I have a couple things going on that I don't think are correct, and I need to go see some seniors before I dial this in. Number one, I don't know, this feels way too high to me. Like, this steering shaft is way too long. I wish I could get a better picture of it, but the weather's there's snow. I'm not rolling this thing outside, but if we kind of take a look at it, it just doesn't feel right. That just doesn't feel right to me. So I'm going to go to my brother. My brother has a senior. Another friend of mine has a senior. I'm going to go and take a look at theirs and take some more measurements because that just feels way too high. So that's one thing that needs to be addressed, like pronto, right now, before I go any further. The other thing that is not feeling right, but this will be dealt with at a later date. If we take a look, you can see where the hood lands on the frame right here. But if you take a look here, the hood is back. Maybe, what, half inch or so? Now, granted, I have to manipulate these corners in order to make it fit correctly. And I don't know exactly where the engine is because these holes here are where the grass screen bolts to the engine. It sandwiches the fiberglass hood into place. But when we come over here to the steering hole, the steering shaft doesn't really fall center of the hole. Now, that could be a lot of factors. Obviously, when I did the hood, I had to make this patch right here. The hole itself may not be exactly where it needs to be. And then the other thing, too, is this is not bolted to the stand that's on the that bolts to the transmission. So we've got a lot of different variables with the hood. Okay, so I'm not too concerned about that because I got to get the hood like lined up and put in place before I can consider this not centered. And even if it's not, I can manipulate it and redo the fiberglass. It's really not a big deal. It's just more of a pain in the back end. But in general, the shaft is right there. So I'm getting there, but before I go making the outer tube, show you how you make the outer tube with the inner bearing and the cap and everything, I need to go to my brother's and over to my buddies to take some measurements from from their cap to the bottom of the steering wheel. I need to really make sure that my measuring was correct. Now, I said it was going to be 23 1/4 from the top of the cap, this edge right here, to the bottom of the steering wheel. I nailed it. It's exactly, here's my tape measure. It's exactly 23 1/4. I nailed that. But it just doesn't feel right. There's just something about it. It just doesn't feel right to me. Maybe it is correct. I don't know. But there's just something about it today that just doesn't feel right. So before I go any further, I am going to go take some measurements of a couple seniors that I know and make sure that mine is done correctly. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please come back, check out the progress. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more than this video, but as always, we got to get it right. I just got to get it right. Everything has to line up. So please leave a comment below. And as always, you have a great day.